The Antidote.
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 Y estás escuchando The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
You're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
With Christian music that doesn't suck.
I hope you're ready for some hard music tonight, because that's what's coming on The Antidote. I'm Dave Hawkins, and thanks for tuning in. You know, metal is a huge part of the Christian music scene, and there are bands that cover every one of the subgenres, including black and death metal, like that from Angel 7, who opened The Antidote with Prophets of the End Times. There are all kinds of labels that handle Christian metal, but there's only a couple that really release the more extreme versions. The most significant one being Vision of God Records of Muskegon, Michigan, who handle a huge number of intense metal releases. The label founder, Duane Keith, and I got together for a chat about metal, his struggles, and why God led him to create Vision of God Records. Here's our talk. The man behind Vision of God Records, Duane Keith, meets The Antidote. Thanks for coming, Duane.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
You know, Duane, I think I really have to question your sanity. This is supposed to be the end of the era for record labels. Why in the world did you want to create another one?
Honestly, I didn't. That's perfectly the truth. I used to run a mainstream label back in the day. I was in a touring band and, things like that. And it certainly wasn't a hobby. I had lived it for many, many years. The economy got horrible, as you were talking about, the turn of the century, record labels, ended up dying off. I mean, it really did die off. It got hard to exist. There was no way to continue to exist. I just stopped doing it. So after many years, it was probably 7, 8 years even in between. Of course, I'm still a fan and was listening to everything, but just wasn't running a label. Was always kind of a believer, knew there was something. I knew there was a higher power, just didn't really know what too much. There had been seeds planted from my grandparents and my parents, things like that. But went to bed one evening, had a dream, this is how it's supposed to go, the name, everything, and woke up going, this was just a dream. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do a label. Costs a lot of money to put out a CD and then to not get the money back for, 6 months, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a deep investment, and God put everything on me how he wanted me to do this. I'm questioning him, how am I going to do this? I'm just a poor guy. I wasn't working at the time, started to kind of get what they would call possibly an immunity issue. They never really put their finger on it. Started to get really, really sick. But the good thing was I was fixing arcade and pinball machines and refurbing them, selling them. That's what I was doing to make ends meet, that sort of thing. Literally 6 months, the Facebook page started, then 6 months in between, we started looking. Micah Brill from This Divided World, I ended up contacting them. It was one of the first bands I ever contacted. And, he liked the whole idea. He called me on the phone. We talked. He says, let me help you get started with things. Let me hook you up with bands, because he knew a lot of bands, True Warriors for Christ compilation CD. He compiled every band and got the permission and took care of everything for me, because of the fact that when you're starting a label, why would we be on your label kind of thing? What can you do for us? We're already established. You're brand new. But with the referral of Micah saying, hey, they came onto the compilation, and then hence that was born.
Followers for Christ had the awesome Westlandia with False Prophet.
To go on from there, the actual sickness gets worse and worse and worse to the point of, wilting away, getting really, really, really sick. And I'm still having dreams and knowing I'm supposed to move forward. And I'm like, I'm an ill man. And I did the first thing and I'm going, literally, we put it out. There was like 5 orders. We were new. Nobody was really buying it. And I'm going, okay, you want me to push forward with this? All right. Brutal Cross, They Wither, both, around the same time. They ended up being pressed in the same couple weeks time frame. And I'm over here going, how is this going to happen? Well, the True Warriors comp came out in November. And then the time between November and January, I had gotten sicker and sicker, and there was no income at all for me, except for my wife taking care of bills from her job that she has, and she's a waitress. So it's not big money. We were making ends meet to an extent. It's like you're nonstop juggling shut-off notices is what we were doing.
Well, then how could you feel it was God directing you with the difficulties you're having in your own life and the financial struggles? Wouldn't God just be supplying everything you could possibly need?
Yes, God does those things for sure. Sometimes no matter what you're doing, ministry, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It takes a minute for anything to get going, no matter what. And of course, God does step in, correct? He does supply everything. So at that time, I'm entirely sick. I'm unable to provide any more, but yet seeing these dreams, visioning things, knowing I'm supposed to move forward, we take our tax money, and I talk to my wife, and I'm like, this is what needs to be done. A big faith jump. God's going to provide, sweetie. We need to do this. And she says, okay. So we took our tax money and put out the Brutal Cross and They Wither. When that happened, of course, it was like 2 good releases back to back, very nice pro releases, everything else. And it started to catch on some. It went from only getting a little bit of, orders to getting a good amount where you're going, okay, there's wonderful growth here. Always having God in the equation, but also taking out the fact that you have to have money to roll and keep continuing. Even though I'm not lusting for money, we have to have money to continue. And praying on that and going, okay, I've done what you asked. I've invested. So instead of getting no money back, it goes to 50% of the money back. So then here's another set of money for another release. I've done what you asked. Please provide that back to me so I can do what you need me to do. That came through orders of people supporting wholesale orders. There's one wonderful person that had come to me and said, I have prayed about a lot of things, and it's been put on me to support this ministry. I'm going to donate to you. And he does provide. Yeah, that was the answer. He's providing, sending other disciples to make sure that his vision, which is vision of God, to manifest and continue.
It's time for some black metal. Brutal Cross bring us Creator.
There's a lot of times where we'll go to put something out and it's $900 or $1,000 to put that CD out. We'll have $500 and I'll take my next work check and put it in and take care of it and know that in a couple months I'll get that back, and that's entirely fine because I know that it's for God and what he's asked me to do, and there's no way that he's going to guide me into something that is going to fail. And he's proven that too. Even when the website started, it was another dream, and I'm just like, I don't have money for that right now. You can take your house payment and start this website. Even my pastor said, you're risky. Throw it out on the table if that's what you want. because you know that so far he's provided, he's always provided. And at this time I'm still getting sicker and sicker and not able to work. And he's nonstop providing, and everything had been flowing. I hadn't worked from release 1 to 4 or 5. Then I had finally went back to work to be able to help invest in things. And it's been a wonderful blessing to continue. And we hold stuff to try to make sure that it's there and invest and do that as much as possible. Of course, we can't always do that, but the job will help out with any of that. I'm willing to take everything I have, lay it out on the table, because God has told me to do so. And even with the take your house payment, put it on the website, and the scariness of all of that, I'd gotten the money back within 21 days. That was the first time that a person had contacted me and said, the Lord put on my heart to donate X amount of money to you every 2 weeks out of my check.
Wow.
And it's just more verification. No longer things are a gamble when I do things. You already know, because the Word tells you he's going to provide and take care of. But either way, I'm blessed to do it. I feel good doing so, and I also feel good making other people know that there's something there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that question, I'm not sure whether I believe or I don't believe, but yet I'm listening to this. It's for those people be able to sit there and know there's an answer to their question. And if they didn't have a question, maybe it will dredge up and plant a seed to give the question. Because no matter what anybody truly believes, there's a higher power, and I have figured that out the hard way.
Oh yeah, some thrash metal from Hell Avenger with the song Hating Evil. Coming up, Duane talks about the ministry of Vision of God Records. Something you've been mentioning during our talk is describing Vision of God as both a record label and a ministry, but how do those fit together?
See, that's a hard thing because, mainstream labels are, profiting. No matter what, we're a nonprofit organization. We give away a lot of things, free things when people order. If you look at our pricing, things are cheap. We're providing a service. We're not here lusting after money. We want to make sure that the issue with a ministry and a label thing is the word is free, but then obviously when people are in a band, it costs money for studio, CD, things like that. We're just trying to make enough money to go and fulfill our contracts with the band so they can get paid and get stuff taken care of as well so they can continue. So it's a very tough thing to do because you're not trying to out profit and things like that. And when we do get in any plus zone of any sort whatsoever, we have to look up and go, okay, we made this much amount of money and we owe these bands this money. And then of course it puts us back into the red. So in terms of making money wise, we get about 80% of our investment back, and the rest we, as the word would say, consider loss. And that's a good thing because it's our sacrifice, and we're happy to do so. We want, when we get people's feedback, we're so glad that it's going the way that it's going.
I hear you. Even with me doing this, I do this for fun. I mean, it plays on a few radio stations, but I don't get any income from it. This is just all out of pocket. It's a passion. And
I fully understand that, because it's a passion.
You really would.
Yeah, right. I don't, like this morning I packed up orders for 3.5 hours, the pre-orders for Christian Metal Underground. And, it's a labor of love and a service that needs to happen. And the word needs to do what the Bible says and proceed itself. And that's what we're here for, and trying to plant seed in those that love metal, of course, and don't want to listen to anything mainstream and want to be more spirit-filled and that sort of thing. That's another reason why we're entirely here.
Vision of God is a pretty selective label. I mean, going through your artist roster, it's all on the heavier side of metal, the majority being black metal. So is this really your own music taste that's coming through?
Yes and no. Obviously I would want to put out what I like, which is brutal extreme music. That's what I came from. That's what I want to do. And that's, what I listen to. There's other Christian metal labels. They may have a brutal CD of this or that. They have 15, 20 CDs, and they have a couple brutal stuff, and then they have more thrash and lighter metal stuff, but there's not a whole lot of anything that's truly dedicated to brutal and extreme, and that was one thing that we wanted to see done as well. And new ministry-wise, that was something that needed to be done properly. We have been selective for sure. We're trying to get the most professional as possible. It is an underground thing, but we are trying to bring it to the next level.
El Gabor with Armageddon. So it's important for you to cover those lesser known bands?
Yes and no. Now that we're grown into a much more professional, larger distribution unit, we have a lot of other bands coming to us. And like we just signed Holy Blood. Those bands are now coming to us because we take care of them. It's a new territory that we're in with this sector of bands, I would say, now, where we've been contacted by these people and had preyed upon things and say, we've done what you wanted. We've seen the vision. We've gotten entirely there. I haven't seen this far because I wasn't expecting to exist to this point. How are we supposed to do this and go on, get an answer to prayer, and continue?
I guess you really haven't hesitated in bringing in a few of those other subgenres. You brought up about the thrash metal. You have the band like Hating Evil. And then you've also got unusual stuff like Final Vortex with this cold wave style.
Yes. Me and Philip from the band are friends, and that was a whole different kind of a thing. I'm, not necessarily a fan of that genre, but believed in a lot, especially the lyrics, like the song Love is a Revolution, and a lot of the bold lyrics. I was into that. And a couple of the songs are great, like Love is a Revolution, and that was what I pushed, because when I listened to it, that's what I said was, hey, wow, that's a great tune. That transcended other things about it. That was definitely a different release. It's not that we're not willing to do anything different like that, but it's got to really tickle me fancy kind of a thing. And what really does is brutal, and really brutal stuff like, Eyes of the Defiled and, Broken Flesh, death metal, Lies, deathcore, This Divided World and stuff like that. But I also love black metal, obviously. So seriously, just go with what we like. And we have a lot of people sending demos, and we can't put everything on, unfortunately, and that's another reason why we started the sub-label Christian Metal Underground.
Duane from Vision of God Records here, and you're listening to the Antidote Radio.
Final Vortex on Love is a Revolution. Now, Duane and I get into one of the more unusual bands on Vision of God. Well, talking about some of the stuff that's unusual, I got to bring up about this new album from this Venezuelan thrash metal band that's just released. Vomitivo from, you got to help me with the band name.
Machiage, and that's on the sub-label Christian Metal Underground.
That's an awesome album, but pretty extreme, especially the title track.
Right. Again, two people may look at that and say, what is that cover? What is that about? But again, biblically, you can look in, the Return to Your Vomit verse, and that's biblically what that is. And a lot of times, or most of the time, if they have something extreme like that, there's a biblical reason, because what a lot of people don't understand is they're into satanic things. They're like, well, Satan stuff is brutal. Read the Bible. There's a lot of brutality in there, and good and evil battles and things like that. There's a lot of extreme things in there. So, I mean, if you haven't read the Bible, you might want to give it a chance before you actually say, I don't believe in any of that, because You can't believe in something you haven't really studied or tried to get in your soul.
None of the music from Vision of God could be considered worshipful. I mean, Christians are often really opposed to anything that comes from the metal realm.
Well, see, that depends on what your version of worship is. Like for me, songs like Great Are the Weak from They Wither, I mean, that's worship. I breathe you in, my heart's full of fire. To me, that is my worship. Do I appreciate regular worship music? I sure do. You know, everybody's got their own thing, of course. If that's what people feel, I agree with that. If it's not their worship, and that's what we're here for, is for those that want to get their worship on that way.
My wife can't stand anything that's metal. I mean, if I want to listen to any hard music, it has to be with headphones on. You got to give me the truth here, Duane. At your house, is it the same situation?
Perfectly honest, my wife doesn't like metal at all. But yet, she'll say she's not. But what's funny is I can say that she is, because when I go to put my check in on a release and say, I got to pay for a release, baby, and you got to take care of the bills for the next 3 weeks. She does it. She's an investor, whether she wants to believe that or not. But, you know, she's not a metalhead at all. Prefers regular worship music, you know, that sort of thing, which I understand. But again, she understands when I'm around the house yelling the lyrics and stuff, and she's like sometimes making comments like, I'm glad that you're yelling the lyrics. I didn't understand what they said. And I'm like, that's why we print the lyrics. Ha ha ha. You know, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I feel you, bro. I understand. But, yeah, if I put in too much metal, she don't necessarily want to hear it. But I work a whole different shift than she does now. And, you know, I can metal myself out as much as I want without anybody saying anything. My son is the metalhead and loves Hating Evil and loves this and loves that. And I want to be a musician. I want to put CDs out like you, Daddy. You know, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's allowed a little bit, especially because he loves it. So, I get that. I got a buddy at church. His wife don't like it. That's his worship. But then he goes riding around in his car, jamming, and he says that's his alone time with God. Sure, that's what it is for you. You're slapping in your headphones, and that's some of your alone time. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, that's what they're doing with their pop music or rock or hip hop or whatever worship. That's what they're doing, and that's what we're doing too.
Well, I'm glad that you and I can both feel each other's pain. Great of the Week from They Wither may not fit your idea of worship music, but it does work for those who love metal. Okay, I'm fast running out of time, so here's the plan for the next episode of The Antidote. I'll be joined by Aaron Graves of Those Lavender Whales for a talk about their extraordinary and quirky music and how a life-threatening disease changed the direction of their latest release, My Bones Are Singing. To finish up, let's catch the rest of the chat with Duane Keith of Vision of God Records and the song The Only Truth by the band And All Shall Bow. See you again next week. I probably shouldn't ask a label owner really to pick favorites, but has there been an artist on Vision of God that's really made a personal impact on you?
For sure, some of their songs. They all have in a certain way, for sure. Every album has some sort of a lyrical, even if it's just one song, that had been so deep to me, and I believe that would be deep to others. That means a lot to me.
They're all favorites.
Yeah, they're all favorites to me for sure. They all get listened to a lot, so it'd be hard to say which one I really liked better than the other.
For Vision of God, what would be the greatest thing for it to achieve?
Just more financial stability to continue to grow. And that's it. We're going to continue regardless. I'm going to do this till I don't have breath in my body, hopefully to get handed off to my son. Want it to continue forever, to try to bring Christian metal to a whole nother level of seriousness so it can be out there and available for people. I would say financial stability, and for people to know that we are entirely a whole different ministry than others that have existed. Not that they've done anything wrong or done anything bad or anything. That's not what we're saying. We do things entirely different. I guess that's about all I can say on that, I guess.
And where would you find Vision of God Records online?
visionofgodrecords.com. And then, of course, we carry all of our sub-label Christian Metal Underground Records stuff on our sites. Of course, that has its individual Facebook page. They're still the same thing, but yet different. You know, there's underground in the name for a reason. The stuff is more of a underground aspect of maybe bands that might not sell 300 or 500 copies like they would on Vision of God. When it's an underground thing, you can go ahead and put out that completely lo-fi black metal band that might only sell 25 copies. It's more underground for sure. We have a lot of bands coming to us that we don't want to deny, so we had to do the sub-label.
Okay, and how do you find the sub-label?
Again, that's just on Facebook, Christian Metal Underground Records. But in terms of the CDs and stuff, it is on visionofgodrecords.com. On the menu, it's got a thing that you can click for Christian Metal Underground, and it just gives you all of those releases.
Cool. Duane, it's been really good having you here for a talk about Vision of God Records. And best of success with the label and the ministry.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you had us on. It was nice finally getting a chance to, talk face to face, and appreciate you helping us get the word out even more. And I guess one more thing I'd like to wrap up with is anybody has questions, any type whatsoever, email me, info@visionofgodrecords.com. I'm not about trying to exclude anybody. It's open for everybody, because that's what the word says, is we're supposed to be here for everybody, and we definitely want to be there and help guide you on your way, no matter where you are in your journey. Bro, I forgot to tell you I'm long-winded. I forgot to tell you that.